Are you thinking about buying a blender? Come on in, welcome to my home. Today we're talking blenders simply because I want to prevent you from doing something which you probably don't want to do, which is buy a piece of equipment you don't have to. Alright, so I'm talking blenders simply because my blender is now probably 4 years old. It's not the world's most expensive blender. Why do I even have a blender, you're asking yourself? Because I also have a food processor. Okay, we're going to have to start differentiating between blenders and food processors and what exactly one does that the other doesn't. In my experience, and this is my personal experience, I've found that I love my food processor for grating, chopping, that sort of stuff, but when it comes to making a blended drink, that sort of thing, nope. Didn't like it that well. And one of the reasons is it's actually hard to deal with because pouring the blended drink into whatever container I'm going to put it in can actually be sort of difficult and annoying and that sort of thing. The blender, I personally do not feel is good for chopping things. It just doesn't do all that great of a job if I want something just like, roughly chopped, that sort of thing. Plus, if I'm going to roughly chop it, I'll just do it myself. Now, when it comes to making smoothies and that, yes, I love my blender. Margaritas, smoothies, whatever. I want my blender. My blender works really well. But if you're looking at a blender, you've got to look at a few things about the blender. How much capacity does it have? How big of a wattage does it have? And then how easy is it to replace parts? Now you're asking about the capacity. Well, we all drink a lot of blended drinks now. I mean, it's just true. Blended drinks are the big thing. And I've seen the whole, this will make one tiny blended drink. And I'm like, well, that's great if I want to do just one blended drink at a time. But most of the time, I do not. So the larger capacity does really help. Now, what about the wattage? Well, the wattage is going to mainly talk about the blades and the motor. Okay, the motor needs some power, especially if you're going to be crushing up ice cubes. Ice cubes can be difficult, so you want to have the power to just blend them really well. And if you have items in there that you're blending, like let's say you're doing peanuts, because yes, you can make your own peanut butter. Hit that eye in the sky, it'll teach you how to make your own peanut butter. You could do that in the blender. You could do all sorts of different things, but you need the power, so the more wattage you have, the more powerful your motor is going to be, which means it's going to blend up things even better. That's important. Then the next part, which I didn't even mention, is how can you clean it? A lot of blenders can only be washed by hand. Some blenders can be thrown into the dishwasher. I like the dishwasher blenders more simply because it's easier for me. I don't have to do much with it. But, I mean, washing them by hand is no big deal. If you want to learn how to wash a blender by hand, let me know down in the comments. I can do a day on that, but probably you already know that. But you're going to have to also think about replacement parts. I have 3 blender, I guess they're called cups, or 3 blender jars. Yeah, that's what it is. It's a blender jar. I have 3 of them simply because it makes my washing even easier. So I don't have to wash them every day, every single time. So yeah, it just makes life easier. But you might not have that convenience. You might find that you break the jar before, or you break the motor, and that's something you're going to have to think about. Will your blender last? Check out the reviews of it. Check out a lot of reviews of it. I'm not like 100% sold on reviews anymore, but it does give you some sort of indication. But I like looking at, is it powerful enough? Because that's the big thing. Make sure that your wattage is powerful enough, and make sure that you can get parts for it. Because the lids will disappear, the blades will get bad, it'll start leaking. If you can make sure that you have a blender where those parts are easy to get, you've got a good blender. A blender that will last you a long time, and it doesn't mean that you have to pay a fortune for it. It just means that you have a blender that works for you. Alright, so what other questions do you have about a blender? Because it's really important that you get something that works for you because of your price point. Your price point's really big. Sure, I would love to have the $120 blender. Can't afford a $120 blender. There are $400 blenders, which I bet work wonderfully. Can't afford that either. But that's okay, because the blender that I do have was a reasonable price. It works really well, and it fits my needs. Don't worry about getting the most expensive thing. Worry about getting something that works for you. The size, the motor, and making sure that you can get replacement parts. That's important. And also the fact, are you going to really use it? How often do you make smoothies or margaritas or whatever? If you are not going to use it that often, don't waste the time for a blender. Maybe your food processor will be just fine with it. Maybe it won't be. But think about, will you actually use it? Like I said, I use my blender every single day. Let me know down in the comments what you think about this. Does this help you? Do you have a space for it? Let me know, and I hope I get to see you again next time. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. You can share it. Don't forget to subscribe and check out the other videos on this channel. I love making these videos for you, and I hope I get to see you again next time.